What's up, Star Wars nerds, and welcome to another episode of Brett on Fett. On today's episode, the latest Star Wars HasLab campaign is nearing an end with only just over halfway backed. So I'm going to give all of you guys that are still on the fence on this one 5 good reasons why I think you should back the new Republic Gunship. Let's get to it. Welcome back to the channel. This is episode 120 of Brett on Fett. Way back on July 25th, 2025 at the San Diego Comic-Con, Hasbro announced the latest Star Wars HasLab campaign, that being the LAAT/I, or Republic Gunship, for the Vintage Collection. And the campaign kicked underway that same day, July 25th, and it's going to end on September 8th, 2025 at 11:59 Eastern Standard Time. At the time I'm recording this video, that is about 10 days away. So we are running out of time on this campaign, and the last I checked, we have just over 4,000 backers on this one, and we need a total of 8,000 backers just to fund the ship, not counting any tiers. Now at 8,000 backers, this HasLab will come with everything you see on the image here, including, of course, the gunship itself, all the accessories it comes with, a couple of stands, and 2 clone pilot figures, 1 packed loose and 1 packed on card. Now in addition to all that, there are 3 tiers set up that we could possibly unlock. They are all Jedi figures. At 10,000 backers, we unlock Coleman Trebor. At 12,000 backers, we unlock Saisi-10. And at 14,000 backers, we unlock Agan Kolar. Now, Steve and Chris from the Hasbro team have been taking the gunship on tour lately to show off what this HasLab is all about. And most recently, they stopped by an event at Red 5 Toys and Collectibles in Massachusetts to show off the gunship. But in addition to the HasLab, they did pipeline a couple of mainline figures from Attack of the Clones, including Padme Amidala and Shaak Ti. So very excited that we will be getting those in mainline Vintage Collection. In addition to those pipeline figures, Steve also noted on Instagram that we will be getting a new Phase 1 Clone Trooper Army Builder figure. And I'm assuming this will just be a plain white Clone Trooper on that new clone mold, with a helmet that is not removable, so it's more properly sized. So that's great news. We definitely need those to go with the gunship, and all of this information should hopefully fuel more excitement for backing the gunship. All right, so like I mentioned earlier, we're just over halfway backed on this gunship with not a lot of time left in the campaign. And so if you're one of those that are on the fence with backing this thing, I have come up with 5 good reasons I think you should consider backing the gunship. Now I want to preface this video by saying you should not back this HasLab if you simply cannot afford it. $450 is a lot of money to spend on a collectible, and there is no shame with admitting to yourself that I have more important things to take care of. If you have to choose between paying your bills and buying a HasLab, you should definitely pay your bills, take care of yourself, take care of your family, be responsible. No one should ever feel pressured to buy an expensive collectible like this if you don't have the means to do so. All right, so with that out of the way, let's take a look at the 5 reasons why I think you should back the new Star Wars HasLab LAAT/I, or Republic Gunship. All right, to kick things off, for reason number 1, I'm going to go with a very obvious one, at least in my opinion, and that is the overall look and scale of this vehicle. This is a film-accurate gunship for the Vintage Collection line. It looks amazing. Nothing about this looks dumbed down for mass production, if you know what I mean. It looks good from every angle, and this thing is loaded with detail. And to me, the scale of this ship is great. Now, it's not perfectly scaled to exactly 3 3/4 per the actual ship, but let's be realistic. Even in the 3 3/4 scale, getting a large ship in the perfect 3 3/4 scale compared to, the ship's actual size is still going to be way too big for the average collector's ability to display it. So for example, the big Millennium Falcon, the sail barge, the Ghost even, all of those are actually a little bit smaller than a true 3 3/4 scale. and you've seen how big those vehicles are. And check out this size comparison exhibit. You got the gunship on top. Look at the wingspan, 30.9 inches compared to the wingspan of the Ghost at 28 inches. That is amazing. The Ghost is a beast of a ship. And so I can't imagine doing a gunship in true 3 3/4 scale. That would probably be about 40 inches, I'm guessing. And that's just going to pose a lot of display issues for me, and I imagine most collectors. And yet the scale they've gone with is plenty big. There's plenty of room in the cargo area for multiple troops. The height is good. You know, they're not bumping their heads, and there's extra storage space behind the cockpit, and you can remove the panels and it reveals a lot of other details. There's a button you can press that spring loads the cargo doors. They slide back, which is great. I really love that feature. And here's a video from John Miko, the Vintage Collection Facebook group, at that Red 5 Toys and Collectibles event. You can really see you've got that medical bay there in between the front cannon and the cargo bay, so that's a really cool little separated area. The ball turret is nice and big. There's plenty of room for the trooper in there, unlike the previous version that was extremely cramped. And I like how the detailing didn't stop at the underbelly of this thing. It looks really nice and finished on the bottom as well. They did not cheap out there. And check out all the detailing in the ceiling part of the cargo bay. Very cool stuff with all of the handlebar things. Looks really good. And check out the paint apps on the back. Plenty of weathering there. So if you're wondering about weathering, it is existent on this thing and it looks really good. So if you're going to spend a lot of money on something like this, you're going to want it to A, look really good, and B, it needs to be sizable to the point that it is impressive and works with all of the other products from that line that are supposed to interact with it, i.e. Clone Trooper action figures, possibly Bark Speeder, etc. And this thing checks the box for both of those. All right, my number 2 reason for backing the HasLab gunship is the customizable options of this ship. One of the really cool features is the front panel can be swapped out for 2 alternate panels that have different nose art. So you got this one with a quacking monkey lizard. You've got one with Kit Fisto on it. Both have phrases in Arabesh, and both are nose art that are canon from the Clone Wars animated series. And by the way, some exciting news that they just announced at this Red 5 event was the HasLab will include these custom decals for adding to your blank panel if you like to. These are really cool, a lot of really neat designs, and here is a rendering someone put together of how those could look on those panels. So even more customizing options for your gunship with the addition of these decals. Another option you'll get with this HasLab that I really love is 2 different flight stands. So you'll get a lower hovering stand, which I'm sure a lot of people will use to have the clone troopers kind of pouring out of it. And then you got a flight stand to really show this thing in flight, taking off, which looks really good. And you know, with the HasLab Ghost, we didn't get any kind of flight stand, and a lot of people were bummed out by that. So I'm really happy that they've sort of course corrected by including not 1, but actually 2 flight stands for this gunship. And as far as display options, you can also remove one of the wings and display it on a shelf that may not be very deep, as you can see in this photo that Steve Evans posted. So it's great to have that option as well. They did something similar with the Ghost, so that's good. So you have more versatility in case you don't have a big table to display it on. And lastly, I'll just mention that they talked about the control panels on the finished product will actually be translucent. So you actually put LEDs behind them to light it up in different colors if you'd like. So that's a pretty cool little option as well for customizing. All right, reason number 3 is that this is a total upgrade from the previous gunship release. I've heard a lot of people say they weren't excited about this HasLab because they've already had a Republic gunship in the Vintage Collection. But you have to keep in mind that previous TVC gunship release is the same gunship from the original 2002 Attack of the Clones Saga line release. It is a very old ship. It was a great toy at the time. It was so good they reissued it, I think, at least 7 times over the years. So that is a testament to how good of a toy it was. However, it is still a simplified, dumbed down for mass production toy that is lacking the proper scaling and the proper detail that we've come to expect with the Vintage Collection line. There's really no comparing the previous TVC release and this HasLab gunship. And by the way, if you want to go buy the previous TVC gunship, Take a look at these prices on eBay. I took this screenshot today. These prices are way more expensive than what you'd pay for this HasLab gunship, which is a far superior product. Steve Evans and Chris Reif from the Hasbro team were on the SWTVC YouTube channel doing an awesome interview, by the way. Definitely go check out that interview if you get the chance. And I think Steve Evans put it best when he said the following.
Probably the quintessential prequel ship that delivers that. And yes, it's been around before, but I think to echo what Chris was saying, if you're a TVC collection, you think you've already got a TVC gunship, you haven't. You don't. You have a toy from 2002, which is fabulous. It's my son's. That got him feeling nostalgic, but like the all new one is just so much more than that, and I think can deliver that beautiful display piece that we all want.
When it comes to the prequels and the Clone Wars, I can't think of another ship that is more iconic than the Republic gunship. And so if you're gonna want that in the vintage collection, the original release just does not cut it anymore. 2025 was the year of the Return to Tatooine campaign by Hasbro for the Vintage Collection, centered around the Cantina HasLab. And now Hasbro has announced that for the Vintage Collection in 2026, they are going to have a product-focused theme around the Battle of Geonosis. And so my number 4 reason for backing the HasLab gunship is to anchor that Battle of Geonosis theme. If Hasbro is going to put out a number of TVC products next year centered around this battle, I just can't imagine it being a success without having the gunship to go with it. It would just feel incredibly empty. Some of you may have seen this sketch that Steve Evans from the Hasbro team did, sort of teasing how you might fill out this scene from the arena with this Battle of Geonosis theme they're going to be working on. And this illustrates how the gunship is the true centerpiece of this display. Here's a look at one of the setups they did at the Red 5 Toys and Collectibles event today. It just looks amazing, with the clones pouring out of this thing and the Jedi surrounding the ship. All they need here is a bunch of battle droids closing in on them to complete that scene. Other than Padme and Shakti, we don't know what products they're going to release for the Battle of Geonosis theme. We can only imagine, but we can imagine there's going to be at least one play set, at least another vehicle, and several figures, probably a creature. And I just can't imagine having all those things without a gunship to go along with it. I think it'll just be a little sad and unfulfilling. And my 5th reason for backing the HasLab gunship, which may be my most controversial or at least debatable, is that I really feel that a successful prequel trilogy HasLab is necessary to preserve the TVC line. And let me explain what I mean by that. Now let me first preface this take by explaining to those of you that may not know me that well that I am an original trilogy guy. I grew up on the original trilogy. I am a child of the 80s. I was born in 1977. And so I eat up everything original trilogy that Hasbro puts out for TVC. And to be honest, I would be perfectly fine if every single TVC HasLab was original trilogy based. But that being said, I love the prequel trilogy as well. And let's face it, my generation of collectors are not getting any younger. And many of us will start buying less and less as we get older. Some of us will start eventually passing on, as morbid as that might sound, but it is true. And so we need that next generation of collectors, the generation that grew up on the prequel trilogy, to start really helping us support the TVC line. Many of them already do, but we need more. And I think the way to get more and keep more prequel trilogy fans in the line is to have a successful HasLab to really feed that interest. And I think if we have that successful prequel trilogy era HasLab, then Hasbro will be way more willing to put out a lot more product from the prequel trilogy, all 3 films, to help grow the vintage collection line, not just by keeping things interesting and mixing things up every now and then, but by bringing in more of those prequel trilogy fans to buy into the product. And aside from all that, these are just really cool films with really iconic scenes, and we're still either completely missing products from some of these scenes, or we're severely lacking a proper TVC update for them. And so again, by backing the HasLab gunship, you are throwing in support for prequel trilogy products in TVC, which in return will help grow TVC and thereby sustaining TVC. I really believe a win for the prequel trilogy in the Vintage Collection is a win for the Vintage Collection as a whole. So let's come together, OT fans, prequel trilogy fans, sequel trilogy fans if you're out there somewhere, and let's get the gunship. All right, so there's my argument for why I think you should back the new HasLab Republic gunship. Now remember, if you plan on backing it, do not wait until the last minute. Remember, you are not charged when you back it. You are only charged as soon as the campaign ends if it backs. And backing it now helps with momentum. Momentum is so important with these HasLabs. So there's absolutely no reason for you to wait to back it later. And if you're thinking you want to wait until the last minute to see what tiers unlock before you back it, just remember that if everybody thought that way, the thing would never back. So I just highly encourage you to just go ahead and back the thing. And if we get more people involved, then hopefully at least one or maybe two of the tiers will unlock. And if the tiers don't unlock, just remember you're still getting a fantastic ship that will never be cheaper than it is now. And keep in mind that Hasbro has said before that the exclusivity of the tiers lies within the card backs and not the figures themselves, so they could still make those figures sometime down the road. Also, if you have no interest in this HasLab, if it's not what you wanted and you don't plan on backing it, one thing you should not be doing is encouraging others to not back it. Actively campaigning for people to not back a HasLab is just wrong, because you're just taking away an opportunity from other fans who really want this. So if you're not going to back it, just move on. No need to spread the hate. All right, so that's going to do it for this episode of Brett on Fett. Let me know if you've backed the HasLab gunship, and if so, what you're most excited about for it. Thanks for checking out this video. Thank you so much to my subscribers. Don't forget, you can also follow me on Instagram. Take care, and we'll see you next time.